Hello, Internet! Welcome to Film Theory! Hey, authortube here. What's up, crazies? Hey, Psych2Goers, welcome back to another video. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. Hello, everybody, this is Kelly Stamps. Hello, everybody! Hello, I'm the Theorizer. Hey, it's Arena Matcha here. Today I'm discussing how I flesh out my characters and how you can too. Character is the most important thing in any story, whether that's the stories that I write, the stories that I read, the TV shows, the films I watch. It's all about the character. And whenever I write a story, I always start with the character. I always have them very fleshed out in my mind. It's all about, okay, so there's this girl, usually it's a girl, and she's called so-and-so, and she does this thing, etc. My books are not plot-driven, and I'm not a fan of plot-driven stories. The Star Wars films, for me, are very plot-driven, and compare those to the Game of Thrones saga, which is very character-driven. Every story is really about a person who desires something or wants to do something. You put them in a situation, and then you let them decide what they're gonna do. For example, in my Kirk University book number 5, Not You, we start off with this character John, who is off to a debating society meeting. What does he want when he gets there? He wants to go and talk to the hot girl, Becca. They interact, and then whatever happens afterwards happens. For me, it really is all about the character and delving into their inner monologue. That is really what I like to do with my books. External description was actually something I struggled. I've had to really develop. So I'm not just having like talking heads. I have to say, okay, they go into this room. What does the room look like? It's really important to do that, by the way. It's really important to describe surroundings because you need to give your readers a feel of where they are, describing things like temperature, whether it's dark or light. These are all things that are really important to bear in mind because obviously the audience can't see that, so you have to put it into their head. It doesn't have to be over the top, but you should do a little bit of it. I don't like lots of action and big wild plots. I like very small scale human drama, and that's probably why I'm such a big fan of Game of Thrones, because even though Game of Thrones is a medieval fantasy historical drama thing, it's very, very character driven, and there is a lot of small scale human drama. My first published book, Every Last Psycho, is pretty much 2 character studies into young women who suffer from mental health conditions. The first, so Every Last Psycho, is divided into 2 novellas. First novella, Every Last Thought, is about Tess, a girl who has schizophrenia, and the second novella, Psycho Girl, is about Evelyn, a girl who is a psychopath. So why exactly did I do this? Honestly, I find it interesting. I like diving into the human psyche. I like exploring books about people who have very extreme or unusual personalities. I really did love delving into these characters and exploring their internal world. The 3 most important things to identify when fleshing out a character are usually their fears, needs, and wants. While it's really cool to know things like when their birthday is, what their favorite color is, if you can identify those 3 things, you've really got the character down. Every Last Thought, we have Tess. What does she want? She wants to be with her best friend Ed, but she needs to realize that what they have is friendship and nothing more, and that she also needs to learn to look after herself and move on from the past. Everyone has an insecurity and something that they fear. Everyone has something that they want or desire, and everyone has something that they need to learn, which is usually by the end of the book. When we talk about fears, we're more talking about the deeper, universal human fears. Actually, I think one of the best books that really explores fear is It by Stephen King, which is one of my favorite books by my favorite author. I love that book because it really is all about fear, and not just like werewolves and vampires, but the fear of losing your whole childhood memories, the fear of losing your creativity, the fear of forgetting your friends. There's so much of that in that book. It's such an amazing book. Like, honestly, It is probably one of the most heartwarming books I've ever read. And I know it's supposed to be a horror. It's not really a horror novel. It's more of like an epic coming of age dramatic thriller. The deep universal fears that really we should be exploring in our books in terms of our characters are things like fear of abandonment, fear of social ostracization, fear of being alone. These are all things that are really at the heart of being human. You can make a character interesting by giving them a hobby or something that they enjoy doing. I've done this a lot with my Kirk University books. Because this series is based around characters at university, I can bring in societies, which is nice, as student societies really do make up a large part of university life, and a lot of people make friends in societies. Societies are also a good way to explore the character's interests. So for example, in Kirk book number 2, Last Night, the character, the male love interest, Malik, he really likes drawing, he likes art, and giving him that makes him feel a bit more real. Because if it was just like, oh yeah, he's just a guy who is studying law, he doesn't really have much personality. But when you give somebody an interest or a hobby or a passion, you really make them a lot more human. Basing characters on people that you know is another good way to flesh out your characters. And when I say this, I don't mean that you should literally take somebody that you know and write their exact likeness into your book, their physical likeness, their sense of humor. Like, please don't do that unless you want to get sued. You can take certain bits of people's personalities and their interests, especially if you are of the age of the characters whom you are writing about. So my books, all of the books that I have written, both drafted and published, are all either young adult and new adult fiction. So the characters are all either in their teens or in their early 20s. And that is because I have only ever been in my teens and I am currently 24. That can be really helpful when you're writing characters to take what you know. So what I really know is being a young woman, being from London. This is what I explore in my fiction. Obviously, you don't have to do this. I'm not telling people what they should or shouldn't do, but it is really helpful if you start with what you know and start with the age range, what you know. Make sure that your characters have some kind of vulnerability. No one likes a Mary Sue, and honestly, no one is perfect. There is no such thing as a perfect individual. Everyone is flawed in some way. Everybody has different flaws. So having a flaw or a vulnerability is really important to me in fiction, and it really helps me connect more with a character. That is kind of why I write so much about mental health, because I almost feel like it makes people more realistic, because even if you don't have a diagnosed mental health condition, everybody struggles with some kind of anxiety. Like in Around Midnight, Megan develops anxiety after her whole relationship with Vince. It's not diagnosed, but she definitely develops anxiety symptoms. If she was just like plowing through it and being all like strong, independent woman, it wouldn't be realistic, especially for a 17-year-old. So again, mentioning my book, Not You, the main characters, John and Becca, are both very flawed in their own ways. Becca has OCD. John, so he's moved from Maine to England, and he's left behind his mother, who has multiple sclerosis, and his younger sister, who he is very close with. And that, of course, is really, really difficult. It's really challenging to do that. Mental health difficulties are things which I have explored a lot across my fiction, and that's because I've experienced that a lot. I've known a lot of people who are like that. I used to frequently attend AA meetings, so I really got to know that kind of environment. That is something which I put a lot of in my books because I'm familiar with it. And again, I really do think that it helps to make characters more relatable, because it explores these things which for such a long time have been swept under the shadows of society. It's really important to distinguish your characters' personalities from the other, and a quick example I'm going to give is the television show Totally Spies. You have these 3 characters, Clover, Sam, and Alex, and all 3 of them have very different personalities, and they also look very physically different. So Clover is white with blue eyes and short blonde hair, and she's also kind of very fashionable and very fun, but also quite impulsive. Sam is also white with green eyes, but she has long red hair, and she's very logical and she's very intelligent and grounded, but she's also a little bit judgmental. And then Sam is brown with kind of hazily eyes and short black hair, and she's probably the most sweet, the most kind, but she can also be a bit naive, and she tends to be the kind of peacemaker between Sam and Clover when they're having their arguments. It's quite common for introverts and extroverts to be quite drawn to one another because of the whole contrasting personalities. In Every Last Thought, Tess is definitely an introvert, while her close friend Monique is more of an extrovert. in Anne. Anne is an introvert, while her friend she makes later on, Simone, is an extrovert. Obviously, you know, introversion and extroversion is a spectrum. No one is wholly one or the other, but incorporating these things really helps. And I really recommend using the Myers-Briggs 16 personalities. I've got a link to that below. What you can do is answer the personality questions as if you were one of your characters, and that can really help you to get into the mind of one of your characters, whether or not they're introverted or extroverted, intuitive or sensing, more feeling or thinking, or judging versus perceiving. And finally, another big point which you can do to really get to the heart of your characters is base them on fictional characters. And that's stealing, but I don't literally mean base a character directly off a fictional character. What I mean is you can use fictitious characters as inspiration and draw inspiration from that. So I am a big film buff. I love movies and I love television shows, and I really do think that if these are used well, there can be really good tools for writers. I don't think that TV is a complete waste of time, because I think if you use television as a way to identify characters. My novella Psycho Girl was directly inspired by the film American Psycho. I give some hints of the TV show The Sopranos in Every Last Thought. Partly it's for my own amusement, but I also just think it's a fun little, I don't know, thing to do. But again, don't directly steal stuff unless you want to be sued for copyright. So to summarize the 6 main things that I have talked about today that can help in fleshing out characters. Number 1, identify their fears, needs, and wants. Number 2, give your character a hobby/passion. Number 3, draw inspiration from real life, personalities, hobbies, things that you know in real life. Number 3, show some vulnerability within the person. You can do that by giving them a fear or a flaw or something they have to overcome. Number 5, use personality types like the 16 personalities or introversion and extroversion. And number 6, draw inspiration from fiction. One little bonus is that you can also give your character something which is their thing, because people do have this in real life. People have certain habits and quirks that they tend to do a lot. I once met somebody who would use the word sweet a lot when they were describing things. They would say, oh yes, that's quite sweet, or oh, it was quite sweet. Something that I did in Anne is I made Anne develop a stress-induced stutter, and I actually continue this in Around Midnight, where when Megan is nervous sometimes she starts to stutter. And if you do this kind of continuously in the book, it shows consistency and it makes the characters seem more real. I think one of the books that I think has some of the best, most realistically well-developed characters is It by Stephen King. I love that book. It is good to pay attention to these little details because it helps you see what makes a person. Humans are creatures of habit. That is why lots of YouTubers open with a certain catchphrase or intro, so that you know, I'm seeing this person. I really hope that this video was helpful and enjoyable and all that jazz. If you have any questions or comments, please send them to me at PO Box 12345 Kiss Fabulous. Subscribe, 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 subscribe to my channel.